Hello, and welcome to the Tuning In podcast. I'm Dana Evans, your inner voice and emotional support coach. In this podcast, we explore the deep wisdom that lives in our bodies, emotions, and inner voice. Together, we'll shed the layers that no longer serve us, creating space to tap into the flow of life and experience true ease. So, are you ready to join me? Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Tuning In podcast. This is episode 136. It is the second episode of our new season, season 5. And I have a very fun flip the script for this episode. And instead of me talking or interviewing someone, I am going to be interviewed by the best person who could possibly interview me, which is Lauren Armstrong. She has been on the podcast before.
Yay.
And she's my coach. I'm going to tell you more about Lauren. Hello. Thank you for being here.
Hi. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. I'm excited to ask you all the questions and get to the depth of your brilliance.
Oh my gosh. It's like we have talked about this episode for, I think like early spring was when it like first came in. And now it is December and it's happening. And I have rescheduled it even multiple times. So
Divine.
This is the right time.
Exactly. Always.
This is the right time. So Lauren, we were just talking about this. So we met in 2019 at Business by Design Live. And I remember it so vividly. I don't know if you do. I have vivid memory.
Yeah.
Something about my arrows.
Yeah.
But so we'll also be referencing human design a lot here, guys. And if you like have deeper, further questions, Lauren is totally your go-to resource. We'll put all of her information in the show notes. But 2019, they sent us into breakout groups at this live conference in Laguna Beach. And we all are in this room. Literally like a week before then, my friend Shannon had told me about this thing called human design. And I was like, So I started looking and I looked up and I was like, I'm a projector. Don't know what any of this means. Then I'm at human design in this breakout room and Lauren walks in late. I don't know why you were late. Like, I don't know if did you just show up or like you got put in?
I think I got put in a group or something. Like they were like, oh, go to that room or something. I don't know.
Go to that room.
Yeah.
And I just got chills because you walked into the room that I was in and everyone's like, oh, hi, like, what do you do? You're a human design. I said, oh my God, I just learned about this. And you're like, oh, what are you? I'm like, I'm a projector. And you're like, oh my gosh. And then you're like, well, I do human design for business. And I have a program. And that night, I remember laying in bed that night and I bought your program.
So fun.
And since then, I love like meet cute. I love origin stories.
Same.
And since then, I think that fall, maybe I started working with you one-to-one. And we have worked together on and off for now 5 years. And
it's half a decade. Isn't that
that's weird?
Wild?
Wow. It is so wild. And I know I shared this with you recently, but so Lauren, as I have, Lauren's continued to evolve and deepen her understanding of her craft. And she is who I go to for not just all things human design. She's a projector. She's a 5/1 self-projected projector. So she has that beautiful throat center activated. And so she's deepened her craft of that. And it's not just human design for entrepreneurs and businesses. She's really who I go to for all of my own body, emotional clearing, and somatic support.
Honored.
So like I do my own work. I could not do what I do for others if I didn't have Lauren in my corner with all the things. Lauren has seen me, you have seen me in literally every state of being.
Yes. And I love all of them. I love all of Dana's states.
So good. I feel so seen by her. I feel so supported by her. And I'm one who loves like niche things. Lauren was into human design before it was a thing. I know everyone listening probably knows about human design now. Lauren, you were like way ahead of the curve.
Thank you.
And I see you.
I feel seen by you too. The feeling is mutual. Yeah.
Yes. So now what she does is she does beautiful one-to-one coaching. She has a beautiful portal called Projector Portal, which is just a play space for projectors. I've been in her Projector Playground mastermind. And then also, what is your other program for other specific types?
Yeah, so I have leverage, which is like the leveraging your human design. So I have it for each of the individual types. So yeah, it's been so fun to play with like the kind of accordion of like niching down, going broad, niching down, going broad, but like being able to like take all of this knowledge and this integration and being able to play with it of how do people actually use and leverage how they're uniquely wired in the world to create and sell offers.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's a perfect example of a projector mastering her craft.
And we're going to get into how you're mastering your craft in this episode.
Laura's going to redirect me because I'll spend the whole episode focusing. I could spend the whole episode focusing on you. So anyway, that's your introduction to Lauren. You know, I am super loyal. The people I love, I absolutely love, and I want them in my sphere and I want them in your sphere. So you guys are going to find Lauren on Instagram. It's @_
Lauren E. Armstrong _. So there is an underscore there. Yes.
Lauren E. Armstrong _ We'll link that up. But she's magic. She's beautiful. I'm so happy she's here. And she's the person I chose because I chose you because I feel most seen, understood, and that you have the most brilliance like in this subject matter to interview me. And what we're doing, it's like a la Jay-Z's song where he goes, "Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Hove." Okay. So I'm allowing Lauren to reintroduce me so that we can really talk about like after having like 9 months off from the podcast, after going through a move and really deepening my own work and what I do and what I offer. I wanted to have a podcast episode that's like, here's who I am. So if you want to work with me, if you want to go deeper into the work that I do and learn from me, whether it's through the podcast or my vitamin D newsletter or my Instagram or my audio course, right? We're doing all these things that Lauren has seen me also through and helped me create. This is going to be the episode that like gives you an idea of like, who's Dana and what is she doing and why is she in this space?
Oof,
so
love it.
That's what we're doing. And we have beautiful complementary human design as well. Like, which if it means anything to you, it's like Lauren has a defined throat. I have an undefined throat. Do you have defined head and ajna?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh my gosh, which I love. And mine are undefined, a completely open head. I have a defined emotional center. Hers is undefined. So we have, and I have, and root. I've got, and heart. Yours are all undefined.
Nope. We're a beautiful complement.
So we have a really beautiful, complementary relationship, which is why it's going to be, passed on to everyone listening. So without further ado, Lauren, I will pass the mic to you and I will let you get us started.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much. And like, I receive all of that recognition so like fully within my body. So I just want to like pause for a moment and like really thank you for seeing me and for allowing me to interview you. Such a compliment from the emotions master that I get to be able to facilitate some of that for you. And love seeing you in all elements and all shades. I'm going to ask you a series of questions today on this podcast episode. You guys, this is totally unscripted. We're flowing, like just whatever comes through is going to come through. It's not like we sat down and we're like, okay, ask me this so I sound really smart. It's like, nope, this is just whatever wants to come out and come through. And I have Dana's human design chart up next to me just so I can kind of like flow within her design a little bit so I can have her explain and speak through some of her genius and some of her brilliance. So this is going to be a fun and juicy episode. Dana, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, amazing. So and also I just want to let you know, there's a bit of a lag on my end audio wise. So if I'm not making the correct facial expressions, it is because of the audio and it catches up and then I make the correct facials. I'm like, oh, I just heard it. So anyway, okay. So I want to start one with like this element of you being a beautiful leader and a guide for people and their emotions. And I want to just ask, like, how did you realize, like, oh, hey, this is a gift of mine?
Ooh, okay. So it was reflected back to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think it wasn't this at projector playground retreat. I think it came through there, and the memory that's popping to me is Dorothy Johnson, breakup coach Dorothy, who I've worked with in a bunch of different capacities. She's like, I just tell people you're my emotional support coach.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was only branding myself or really talking about inner voice. And I was really struggling to communicate like what that meant. And so then we all kind of talked about that at the time. And in reflection, it became really clear that yes, I get people into their inner voice, but in order to get there, you actually have to move through the emotional charges that are blocking you from tapping into that wisdom within you. And so I looked back. It's like one of those like reflection moments where you look back at the themes in your life. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is something I have personally been exploring within myself for a really long time. And also it's my favorite thing to do with my clients. And I have the capacity, whereas a lot of people might feel uncomfortable with emotions, I'm like okay with all of them. So that's kind of, I think that's where it all started.
Yeah, it's so powerful. Like, especially knowing elements of like your design, right? And like having you be a 2-4 profile. So like you are an easy breezy genius. Like there's something that you were born with that's a gift that you think that like everyone can do. And it's not until you're called out and recognized as a projector by your 4th line community network that you're like, oh, wait a minute, not everyone can do this thing. This comes really naturally to me. So I love that, like, oh, hey, it did come out of like a calling out from network, from community, from fellow projectors, from people who saw and recognized you, which I think is like really fun. And so like inner voice being one element of the way that you do this for people. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, like for you, I know that you have so many beautiful modalities that you've like studied, integrated, like naturally just know how to do. Like, could you share a little bit about like your system of this emotional clearing, this emotional support work, and kind of like all of these elements that you've kind of woven together to create this like beautiful program? Like all your programming have all of these things in mind. And like, I just want you to like riff a little bit on all of those elements.
Yeah. Okay. I'm like, my mind's like, I wish I had a document where I have these all written down in one place, but let's riff. So I mean, it really did start. Now I can really, there's so much that where I'm at now, I can reflect and track back, but it really did start when I did a yoga teacher training, which in so many ways I think sounds really cliche, but at the time I just wanted to deepen my own experience of yoga. But that studio, it was called Vital Yoga, and those teachers, Micah and Desi Springer, they were my introduction when I was like 22. Mm-hmm. So right after college, moved back to Golden, and maybe a year in, so 22 or 23, I joined this, and they were my introduction to eating a certain way. Like I always was really interested in food and eating well and like kind of doing cleanses, but I learned about Ayurveda, which was like a really intuitive way of eating based on like types. So, right. I've loved typing for so long.
Yeah. Very projectors. Like, tell me about myself.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then, that yoga is such a body practice, but I am so grateful that that studio transformed through another projector. Desi is a projector. And John Friend, came along. He was the founder of Anusara Yoga, and they collaborated. He's a manifester. She's a projector. They collaborated and created this brilliant system called Bowspring, which is the most presence practice. And it's wisdom, body movement, nervous system regulation. And their whole thing was do 20% of the effort, 80% of the time. So it was this whole flip of the script of like, hey, we're not using our bodies in the most efficient way. So it was like about using your bodies efficiently. And like, so that, and I went all in as I do. So I learned therapeutic body work. I became a really, really masterful practitioner of this Bowspring method. And during that time, Micah was into astrology. So I remember my first astrology reading with her, and she's like, don't take this the wrong way, but you're not here to work really hard. And I was like, but I'm so good at working hard. How can you tell me I'm not here to work hard? And like, so these are foundational things that at the time, I didn't know what I was learning and embodying. I was just kind of like, and they didn't even really either. Like we were all just kind of like going on this path together. And that laid the foundation that only now am I really able to pull on. Like I did it and I was naturally good at it, but I didn't conceptualize how impactful that was, like to my body, to my nervous system, to like how I've built my own business. And so from that place, then I'm like, oh, I like doing this. I like teaching people. Oh my gosh. I love it when people listen to me. I can see things, right? And like help them like move into their bodies. And it was like so clear. And then I was like, oh, well, you can become a health coach. And so I started doing, at the time I was listening to Sean Croxton. Oh my gosh, I could go so deep, but he was helping me with like food, right? Mm-hmm. And I joined his mastermind before I knew what a mastermind was. And, that's how I met Shannon. And, you have all these fun little offshoots, but it was like, oh, this is what coaching means. And this is what health coaching means. And I took, Cynthia Garcia's her health coaching program. And she had a whole element of psychology and emotional intelligence. So it wasn't just mind coaching. And then I got into the life coach school, which was all mind coaching. Right. And so it's like, as I kept, going further and further, I kept kind of refining, like, I mastered this. Like, I get this. Okay. What's next? I get this. What's next? Until I found Jess Lively, who I found through my favorite food blogger, Joy the Baker, who I still use her recipes today. It's like network, right? This is Fourth Line Network. But Jess Lively is who introduced me to inner voice and the wisdom within. And once I found that, I'm like, this is my work. And I deep dove into that. That was 2020, 2019, 2020 and beyond. And we learned about emotional beanbags and emotional clearing in this new, different way. And I was like, wow. And I was like, okay, this is the thing, right? Everything I do, I'm like, this is the thing I'm going to do. And since then, I've really kind of pulled back and realized that my usefulness, right? My brilliance isn't in any of these one things. Well, of course, then I learned human design. I'm like, oh my God, I love human design. It's not any of these one things. I don't want to be a health coach. I don't want to be a body worker. I don't want to be a yoga teacher. I don't only want to do inner voice, right? I don't only want to do one-to-one coaching. I don't only want to do blah, blah, blah. I was a coach for James Wedmore, right? And that was really business coaching. I'm like, I don't want to only do business coaching. And so each layer has it's like sediment. So the sediment that I don't need after I learn something falls to the bottom and the gold rises to the top. And so I've been gold mining my own life. And now I'm at this place where I really see where I get to pull elements of all of it together. So we're working with inner voice, emotions, and body. And it's bringing them together. It's using the physical body, learning the language of the body, listening to the sensations to tell us where we need to go, where we need to put our mental attention. And then it's a tuning into that physical body to let the emotions boil up, boil over, and come out. And it's on the other side of that burst, of that explosion of the emotion, that we have the stillness and the calmness and the quiet to be able to tap into the inner voice, which is your North Star. And it's that guidance that is moving people forward in a way that their mind cannot. And that's kind of where it all comes together. And now I'm diving even deeper into, fascial, like manual release. So I do that with people, we do the Zoom coaching, but I can take it even further and actually do physical release with people. And I've been playing that with my emotional edit group, like showing them how to do it on themselves. And so it's like, it just keeps refining and getting deeper and deeper and deeper into the truth of how I want to support people. And it's just so fun.
Oh my gosh. I love all of that, especially like that culmination, right? It's like these layers. And I think that there's a lot of people who are like, quote unquote, hard on themselves. They haven't found like their thing. And it's like, you're such a beautiful example of like the thing becomes the thing plus something else, plus something. And you get to like tap into and leverage all of these beautiful like tools, especially for you. Like this is a system that you're mastering. Like this is something that you're able to like look back on the body parts from that bowstring, like originality, like that all the way to fascia and emotions, like in the body. It's like, you're using all elements. You're just using them in your own unique, natural, easy breezy way. And I think that's just like so fun to look at. You keynoted so many elements of your design in that description, which I think is just like so fun. This like defined spleen, which knows what's healthy and not healthy, right? Like you naturally intuitively know that. And so being able to like help and support other people through that. Your undefined sacral center, which like wants to do the most efficient thing. Like you're like, okay, how do we get there faster? Right? You explained like, okay, well, you were in like the shadow of that undefined sacral center going through like, I can outwork everyone, and being like, oh wait, I'm not here to work. Like, let me go through this journey of what does the wisdom of this look like? And it looks like being able to stop, slow down, feel for you, which is like so beautiful how that was also incorporated into the inner voice work and then the emotions work. And then having that reflected back to you. So it's just like so cool. Okay. I want to ask, because if I were listening to this podcast, I'd be like, okay, ask her more about the fascia thing, because that's really interesting. It's something I've never heard of before. So like, can you just like take me down a rabbit hole for a moment and explain what shows up for you?
Yes.
With emotions and fascia and body? Like, tell me all the details.
Like, I want to send everyone to all the places that I've gotten here, but I'll just share where I'm at, because I feel like this is an organic deepening. I wanted to say too that there is an overarching theme to all of the work I do, and it is space. I was looking through my old podcast episodes yesterday, just like, okay, where am I at? I'm doing some reflecting from the year. And I think like 50% of them have the word space somewhere in the title. Because without space, we're not going to be able to, like, space allows us to slow down, right? Slowing down creates space. Space allows us to slow down, whichever way it works. And that allows us to like witness ourselves in our patterns. And it allows us to be like, oh, I'm doing to avoid feeling. And so it's like this overarching theme. And space in the body, right? We create space in the body when we release, when we let go of emotions, when we move stuff out. But so many people's bodies are so locked up that there's no space. There's literally not space for you to breathe. Like the diaphragm, this is such a beautiful visual, but when you breathe, your diaphragm is right, at the base of your rib cage. Your diaphragm moves down when you breathe in. And if you think about like a tight belly, and a lot of old methodologies of movement and like crunches, and like they're all about actually contracting and holding in the belly. And there's this harshness to so much of the work that we do that I'm really here to advocate for space and gentleness within our bodies. And when we do that for ourselves, the body itself starts to soften. And so I think it's the next layer of that is when the body starts to soften a little bit through this work, then you can go in and really look at different parts that are holding pain. Like we hold like sadness and grief in our lungs and in our chest and in our upper body, right? There's a lot of anger in the liver and the gallbladder. There is fear in the kidneys. And around all of these organs, we have like the fascia, which is this not really fully known, by the way. This is just like a theory. It's still evolving what it is, but it's this encasing that's like encasing the muscles and the organs. And it's all made of like liquid and water and collagen. And like, it's malleable. Muscle moves bone. So like, we're not static. We're not rigid. We're not straight lines. We're these like fluid, mobile bodies. And when the mind is fluid, the body can be fluid. And when the body can be fluid, it helps the mind become more fluid. And so if you like all the work I'm doing gets us there, but you can take it deeper, right? If you do a regular bowstring practice, or if you do manual manipulation in your body, you can release your diaphragm by like squeezing, releasing it. And all of a sudden you can breathe deeper. And it's so much different than a massage. This is like working with the body, not forcing a release. It's like holding and containing, right? Like when our nervous system is stressed, it goes out and contracted.
Mm-hmm.
And when a really nice way to help that is to squeeze it in and down, a hug. So it's like fascial release is almost like hugging your body, hugging your organs in a really intentional way. And with that comes all of the shit that got stuck there, because it does. So you get a burst of anger or like a massive breakdown of tears just by squeezing and holding and maneuvering a certain part of the body in a certain way. And it releases it, and then it's gone. And just like when we do somatic work or even pure emotion work, like the beauty I think of this work is once you let it out fully from mind through the body, through the area of the body that's being held, it's free.
Mm-hmm.
There might be other layers of it and like other instances. And, if I got into past life training this year too, right? So we have past lives and generational trauma, like the whole gamut, but it's all stored in our bodies and then in our energetic fields. And so we get to approach it from all of the different realms. And it just leaves you feeling, well, as my inner voice said, to release is to feel relief.
Mm.
And I think we're all seeking that in one way or another.
Oh my gosh, that was so fun. Okay, so you're talking about a couple of different things. Like one is this like fluidity element, right? And then the other is like this deep release of things that have been like stuck in our tissues, stuck in our bodies, stuck in our fascia. So what becomes like available or possible for someone when they're no longer holding on to this stuff? Because like, yes, sounds good. And like, why is that important?
Yeah. And it's a great question, because even for myself, you've held many sessions for me where you're like, I think there's something there. I'm like, I don't feel like it.
Yeah.
I don't want to. Can't we just go to the strategic things and get the things done? I just want to get the things done. So what I see and what I've experienced is we all have patterns and we all have ways of being. Some serve us and some don't. And we all have things that we desire. And so the question is, do you want to push and fight and effort your way toward what you desire because it is going against your way of being? Or do you want to get to the root of it, shift the way of being by releasing what you're not needing? And by doing that, it quite literally frees up the energy to move toward the direction that you want.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. It's
And I
so
can speak to that because I've experienced that so many times. It's like, I'm fighting something. It happened with the emotional edit launch. It was like, I was resisting it, and we had a session. And then after the session, like 2 days later, I was just doing all the things that I had been avoiding, and I was doing them, and it was just easy and not stressful. So it's like, it really does work that way. Sometimes it's subtle, and you have to be aware and have space to reflect in order to like notice what's happening. But that's how it works. It is the more efficient way to get things done. It is the more efficient way to do coaching. It is the more effective way to move forward in your life. And yes, we get to use the mind for us, but the mind is the one that's usually trying to work against us because it's trying to protect the body, right? Because it doesn't want you to be harmed or injured. But working from the mind is only 5% of the equation. So coaching yourself out of it through the mind, you're still going to have to use willpower to overcome the deep resistance and fear that the body has. So if you get into the body and release that, usually the mind gets on board, or it only needs a little bit of coaching and nudging to get it moving in that direction that you desire.
So true. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's almost like the way that I see it from like a mind place is like, that's the difference between having someone who's a beautiful space holder in a coaching container of like, asking a question and giving someone space to reflect versus someone who's like a drill sergeant in a coaching session. Do this and then do this and then do this. It's like, those are very different energies and depending on who you are, but I don't think I know anyone who does well the second type, right? It's like, allowing what needs to come through so that you're able to move because your mind, your body, your heart, your soul, your inner voice, we're all on board. We're all working towards the same goal. We're all rowing in the same direction.
Yes.
So I love that. I love
that so much.
So I'm actually curious, like based off of the humans that you've been able to support and work with, like with using this body, with these emotions, with the inner voice, like what are some things that you've seen come through that were like, oh my gosh, like that wasn't possible before, or they were working really hard or struggling or fighting towards something that their inner voice, bodies, minds were able to get on board with and be like, oh, like this is the shift. I'm so curious, like what's shown up for you in your work?
I feel emotional right now. My eyes are tearing up. I so deeply desire for people to see and experience themselves like through the eyes that I see them through. And when that happens, when we're working together, it's just this like massive explosion of beauty. And I mean, I a lot of times, most people that I work with like want to keep going because there's no like start and clear end point. So this is so different than like, I'm getting you to a result because I'm not. But what I have seen, and I haven't thought about this until just now, but like what I have seen with every single person that I've worked with is their bodies tell them when it's time to be done. And that in itself is the most perfect explanation and like embodiment of the work. Cause they'll be like, I'm sad that we're not working together anymore. Like I'm sad, but I feel like it's time. And I'm like, yeah, it's time for you to fly. Like go out and fly, and it's your perfect timing. So like, that's the thing. And I always feel a little bit sad too, but I can always connect with that energy. I'm like, yeah, you're ready. And so a lot of the work I end up seeing as like the result is self-worth, self-concept, and trust and belief in the divine, their God, their inner voice. I worked with, oh God, this woman, she was a manifestor. So like so impactful and like such strong energy. And I can't even describe her transformation. I mean, it really was a transformation of like from someone who felt extremely anxiously attached and unsure of herself and like also emotional. She was an emotional manifestor, and like feeling like she was too much and her emotions were too big and they were the reason, it's like all this stuff, to on the other side of it, like literally trusting God to guide her toward like what's next. Seeing that it's not that her emotions are too big. It's like, who can hold that for her, with her, and not going from seeking something outside of herself to being like, it will find me and I will match with things when it's time. And I'm like, you're like, like it was a 180.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm actually going to do an interview with her because I mean, her story was just unbelievable. But then I had someone who, she had her gallbladder removed because she had so much pain there, and the pains remained after the gallbladder was removed. And we were working together, and gallbladder and liver they work together energetically. And there is a lot of anger that is processed there. And every time she'd get activated, it's like, boom, like crippling pain. And I had to really like hold myself, she did doctor things and like to make sure, but I'm like, we have to trust the energetics of this because doctors say you're good. And we just kept going there and going there and going there and going there and going there. And I know by the time that we stopped working together, she's like, there is space there that has never been. And so it's like, those are the kind of things too, of like actual body pains, this, or anxiety. Everyone I've worked with, their anxiety has reduced astronomically, like everyone. It's just a side effect because when you're going inward, when you're tapping into your inner voice, when you're clearing, I call anxiety a faux motion because
I love the way you talk about anxiety.
It's so fun. And it's like, it's vibration up above and from the mind. And it's just a more comfortable experience, and it's protecting you from something deeper, usually sadness or anger or fear. And so it's not that we're removing anxiety. It's just we're getting underneath anxiety. And when you clear what's underneath anxiety, the anxiety goes away because it has nothing to protect. And don't we all want that?
Amen. It's so interesting, like even hearing you reflect on those like couple of examples and like the way that your work shows up. And so because it was not just like a physical pain example, or not just like something's not like I'm not doing the things that I want to be doing, and like it's emotionally, like there's so many different variations in the way that this work like shows up. And so one of the things that's just like popping for me that I want to ask you about, and we've never talked about this before, so I'm just like curious in the way that it shows up in this way. Because for you, your conscious sun in your human design chart is gate 37. We talked about that, but like within this context, right? So that's your life's work, or your life's brand. And when we look at the gene key, like keynotes of gate 37, of, gene key 37, same, we're looking at the shadow to the gift to the city, right? So like we're always going to experience the shadow makes us stronger. Like we get to the gift and we experience a little bit of the city. And so the shadow for gate 37 or gene key 37 is weakness. The gift is equality, and the city is tenderness. And I'm really hearing that theme show up for you with those clients and how you're helping them move through this quote unquote weakness, whether it's an actual weakness or a perceived weakness. I'm curious if you have anything that you want to like riff on about that.
That's really, really cool to hear you talk about that. Because in so many ways, like, why do we seek out support? Because we feel kind of that there's a weakness. Like, I have something that I want to improve on, and I think you can help me do that because whatever I see within you. And so and the tenderness, because I just totally just blanked. What's the gift is?
Equality.
So that I do struggle with that word, like with like relating that a little bit,
in
but
context.
yeah, in this context. But it's like I'm almost seeing like equality is like leveling the playing field within yourself, and seeing, I mean, a big part of my work is making peace and honestly friends with the darknesses within you. So if we start to view the darkness, say heaviness, sadness, anger, the things that you don't like about yourself, right? Whether it's body parts or like traits or things that you're not doing. If we start to see those through the same compassionately curious eyes as we see the things we do like ourselves, it does level the playing field. And that's where we create harmony. And when we're in harmony, right, with our systems, like with all aspects of self, because we are humans and we do have to have these vast, complex, we can't be all one thing. When we have harmony, I mean, that, at least for me, when it comes to tenderness, at least how I'm interpreting the word, it's like, it really does allow us to be so much softer and gentler with ourselves. I will like die on this sword. We do not need to be harder on ourselves. And I can be so very, very, very hard on, I was hard on myself yesterday. Like society, expectation, marketing, like everything is designed to see ourselves in weakness and to see what we're lacking. And then it makes us hard on ourselves for not being better. And so when we harmonize of like, I am complete and whole, we don't really use those words, but like, that's kind of what we're doing when we harmonize. Then we can be so much gentler with ourselves, be tender with ourselves, treat ourselves with that kind compassion, which in turn frees us, because we're not operating from, fear and all those tough emotions. It frees us to move forward in the direction we want. And the best part, of course, about that is you become so much more tender and compassionate for others and with others.
Hear, hear.
Yeah. And with animals in my case,
that.
Which is actually, it's funny. A long time ago, I wrote, when I started the one-to-one coaching, Insight one-to-one coaching, I came up with the phases based on the sloth experiment. Remember the sloth experiment? Guys, if you haven't heard that on the podcast, best. Lauren, that was like when I first started being a projector, letting my inner voice guide, like embodying being a projector. My inner voice is like, we'll call it a sloth experiment. Because Lauren's like, what happens if you just let go? And my mind's like, no. So inner voice,
Never.
which your inner voice will do. It happens all the time. I had a client, her inner voice, it's like marshmallow. So it's like, that becomes her, right? Her baseline. It's like a marshmallow experiment for 1 week, for 1 month, whatever. So like your inner voice will do these type of things to you. I didn't give that to me. It just like showed up. But, I started this coaching based on what I went through. And that was like one of the stages was like deep compassion, but also you kind of go through a phase of being super sensitive and like with animals and with substances and with like everything in as you clear out, you become, a thinner veil protecting you, right? Because we don't have all the armor of the emotions and the old stuff. And so you become more sensitive for a time, and then you learn how to kind of like clean that up and become a little bit more slippery, like Teflon.
Like Teflon. Ooh, I love that.
Unless you're an animal in my life, and then I have podcast after podcast after podcast about animals that broke me because they were helping me to clear some sort of old emotion.
I love it. I'm curious, like for those of us who maybe have trouble feeling our feelings or are like fearful of emotions or have maybe grown up in the conditioning of like, you're not allowed to feel your emotions. What would like a baby step be? And why is it important to feel your feelings?
So first of all, super normal. And even people who have been doing this with me for a bit, like that old story can come back up. I was talking to the emotional edit group, and three, like all on the call, like three people all at once, they were each going through something similar and heavy. And they're like, okay, I need help. I'm like, well, you know what, like you have actually the resources. So what's actually going on? And all three of them said, I'm afraid of what's going to come up. And the follow up to that is like, a lot of times the fear of emotion can be, I'm afraid that I won't be able to handle what comes up, and AKA that I can't control it. So that can come up a lot for people who like don't want to feel. And so first, and I just want to like remind you, one, well, have you not controlled your emotions up until now? Really well? So much so that they're not here? Like you're probably really good at it. And just because you start to feel something, it doesn't mean that you can't stop. So it's like you can consciously choose to stop. You can get up and exit the situation. You can call a friend. You can go on a walk. Like there are physical things you can do if you want to stop something. But actually, that's just mind fear, because it is so cathartic to release is to feel relief. It is so, it really does feel good to be in your feels. And so usually I find that once someone allows themselves to go there, they want to keep going, and it naturally will taper out. Sometimes it's, I mean, I've had sessions with you where it's like deep, intense, retching, crying, hysterical for like 15 minutes. And then I'm just like laughing and fine. Because that's the thing. If you release it, you get the relief every single time. It is there, like every time. The emotional arc, okay, which you just sent me a great visual for. I need to create a visual for this, but it's like on one, is this an okay time to talk about that?
Yes, go for it.
Okay. So I think this is helpful for anyone who doesn't want to feel their emotions or has trouble. I'll directly address the having trouble in a second. But if you don't want to feel them and you feel like afraid or nervous or like you tend to avoid them and you're resistant to them because of whatever you make it mean. So you're always going to go through the emotional arc. On one side of the emotional arc is like fine or numb, right? It's numb. And on the other side is ease and neutral. So the thing that's so tricky, guys, is that they both are more of a flatter feeling. And so what the mind does is it says, I don't want to go into the intensity of the emotion. I don't want to jump on the wave, because if I do, everything's going to be choppy and loud and really, really stressful. So I'd rather stay here. But here is numb. And numb is not the same as ease and neutral. So it's like, and just check in with yourself for a second. It's like, have you experienced where you feel like numb? You're like, I'm fine. Versus have you ever experienced the feeling of like ease and neutrality? And can you sense how those are different? So that's always what we're kind of like battling between. And what happens is as the emotion prickles, as you get the sensation in the body, as it starts to build, we get to that point. It's like building, and then boom, anxiety. And anxiety is the best sign of like, there's something there that I need to go into and I'm avoiding it. I'm pushing it away. So every time you hit anxiety, the mind's going to go anxiety, back to numb. And you might numb yourself, with anything, however you numb yourself, or you might just like shut down. But every time you do that, you're actually strengthening the anxiety as a protection method, and you're weakening your calm clarity, right? Your neutrality, your ease. And so by surfing the wave, by diving head first when it comes, going through the anxiety, right? You go through the anxiety into the emotion, then you get to ride the choppy wave, and it might just be minutes. And then every time that you go into the emotion, you come to the other side, which is the neutral ease. the calm clarity, which is actually what we all want. And we're living in numb. We're sacrificing ourselves. We're living in numb, which is flatlined. It's emotionless. It's discomfort, and it's yearning. And that is what we're substituting for the deep ease that is possible for every single person every single day.
Oh, okay. So a person listening to this is like, okay, interesting. How do I know if I'm in numb?
Ooh, okay. I'm like, I have a post about this. How do you know? Okay. You can probably help me with this, Lauren. But so if you have like a lot of unexplained pains in the body, or just like low level discomfort, if you have a lot of resting tension, so if like you're kind of just holding at all times, like everyone right now, just, are you holding your belly in? Right? If you look at your thumbs, are they like flipped up like a banana, like hyperextended? Your hands, like, are there tendons like popping on your hands and your feet? What about your inner thighs? Right? What about your jaw? Ooh, right? Everyone open and close your jaw. Your eyebrows, your breath, your diaphragm, your shoulders. Like right away, we get to see all of these things where it's like, okay, that's the body holding. And when the body's holding, it's suppressing. But also, if you're super reactive, if like someone says the wrong thing and you like snap at them, right? Like anytime you have a reaction that is greater than the circumstance calls for is a really good indicator that there's some emotion that we need to deal with. And if you have trouble sleeping, right? If you're constantly anxious, call me, please. Like,
amen.
Like I will immediately rid you of your anxiety in one session. Like you will leave the session and you'll be like, this is the first time I haven't felt anxious in years. I mean, right?
Yeah.
It might not stay forever. Like we got to keep building on that, but it's like, I can give you immediate relief.
Yeah. Because the anxiousness is really just hiding what's actually going on underneath, and you're able to get to what's underneath.
Yeah. Like, why do surface level? Yeah. Like, why would we manage anxiety? I just like, I don't understand. Like, this is like such a thing, like managing. I'm like, why would I manage my anxiety when I can just get rid of it, unplug it?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone, if you think you have to manage your anxiety, call me because I don't want that.
Which brings us to another point. And I feel like you have such a unique perspective on this. And like, this is one of those easy breezy genius natural things that you like can't necessarily see in yourself, but I and others who work with you totally see it in you. Which is like around, like you bring somatics into this work, you bring inner voice into this work, you bring emotions into this work, you bring the body into this work. But there are so many people that are operating in this world from the mind and the emotions. And so I'm curious what your perspective is. I know you have so much to say on this. Like, talk to me about the mind and emotions versus the body and emotions.
Okay. And actually, this is probably good. This will help people who have trouble with emotions. Okay. Let me address that really quickly. If you have trouble with feeling, it's okay. And all I say for you is start building body awareness and body presence. Very simply, we just start there because I believe emotion and sensation is the language of the body. So a lot of times people who aren't able to feel emotion, or they feel really numb, or they're like, I'm just fine. That's, it's fine until you get all these other things coming up that are telling you that you need to deal with something. So a lot of external things will be a mirror to tell you, oh, there's something going on internally. And it can be hard to go internally because you feel disconnected, not even from emotions, but from the body. And if you live in your head a lot, if you're always thinking, if you're always doing, if you're always busy, if you're always going forward and kind of maybe then disconnected from the present moment, your body lives in the present moment. It doesn't live in the past and the future. So dropping into the present, dropping into the body is going to be the easiest way for you to experience emotions. And the easiest way to drop into your body is literally to touch your body. Squeeze your arms, right? Like you guys can do this right now, right? Like press your hands on the top of your head and then press your head into your hands and rise up. Bring your hands to your belly, palpate, right? Pat your body. There was a book as a kid called Pat the Bunny. And it's like, pat your body. And so physical touch is just like a really easy way to, and then you do physical touch and then you just pause and exhale. And then you notice, what do I sense in my body? And sensing for tingling feelings or warmth or tightness or sparks. That's the way to start feeling. Okay. So 1. 2, how do I see the body? I forgot your question.
Yeah. More of like, a lot of people are operating from like, okay, well, feeling is just like your thoughts create your feelings versus like the body, like the mind down versus like the body up, like the body is having a feeling, and like intellectualizing emotions versus actually feeling emotions. I just want your unique perspective on that.
Oh, I love this question. Okay. Yes. Okay. It is not your mind's job to process emotions. Okay. So stop. So step 1.
Yes.
It is not your mind's job to process it is none of your mind's freaking business. So when something's coming up, and look, I do this too. The immediate response is, what happened? What's wrong with me? Why am I feeling this way? How do I get rid of it?
Story.
Right? That's like, those are our mind, like who, what, where, when, why, how. So the mind gets super involved but what the mind is actually doing is the mind is picking up on a sensation. And then it is making meaning of the sensation. And then it is trying to make it its own job to get rid of the sensation because the mind equates the sensation to a feeling that it identifies. And that feeling has a meaning and a name and a meaning. And if the meaning is problem bad, then the mind wants to get rid of it. This is so fascinating. This is the whole thing when we talk about like harmonizing and making peace with the highs and the lows and all of the experiences is like, you're literally just sensing something. You're picking up on an energy or a sensation in the body, and then you're saying, this is a bad thing and I don't want it. And so that is the mind trying to deal with feelings. And here's where I can get on board with thoughts create feelings is when the mind senses something in the body, then it makes meaning of it. Then it thinks more thoughts that support that feeling. Like if I feel a dropping in my belly, then my mind says sadness. And my mind's like, oh God, I'm sad. You know what's really sad? That I don't get anything done ever. And that I'm never going to work with clients again. And that I never have enough energy to do what I do. So now the mind is feeding the story and it is feeding that emotion. Another way to deal with sad, this is how I dealt with sad yesterday. I was so sad. And John, my husband, says, what's wrong? I said, nothing's wrong. I feel sad. My favorite phrase, you guys can all embody this, take this on. Sad isn't bad. Reframe. Tears are a releasing of resistance. Crying doesn't mean anything's inherently wrong or bad. It's just it's just like sweating, right? It's just a way for your body to get out things it doesn't need. There's cortisol in your tears. I think that's so cool. And so we're overcoming a lot to say, let me just feel through it. But what is a more supportive practice is when you feel something, when you get a sensation that pings, you just get to watch it. So actually pulling yourself out of it a little bit and being the observer of it, being like, oh, and a really good way to do this for like the mind, because the mind's going to be like, but we need to figure this out, right? How many times are you like, I got to figure out what happened. I don't understand. I used to say this all the time. I still do. Like, I don't understand why I feel this way. I had a great day. Like the mind's like, it's like trying to rationalize. So when you catch yourself doing that awareness, it's really useful to just like notice the feeling and like describe it as if you're writing a report on it, like a science report, a white paper. It feels dark and black and like a tire and stiff and rubbery. Feels like it doesn't want to move. And you can just kind of let the mind do that while your breath and your body and even your hands can let it start to move. Because what I see over and over and over and over again is when a sensation pings, all it's saying is, hey, I want your attention. I have something to say and share, and I'm trying to get you to do something. But the mind says, problem, 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 got to get rid of it and solve it. Oh my God, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. I don't want it, I don't want it. But instead, that's why I say it's the language of the body. It's a communication. It's like if you cut your finger and it bleeds, like, and you feel pain, like that's communication. Like, please, this needs to be dealt with. And so when you start to see it as this is a message, it's communication, and it wants my attention, you can start to treat it like that. Like, oh, do you have something you need to say? Like, have I felt this before? Is this familiar? Yeah, it is. Oh, maybe it has a message for me. Maybe it has some information that I need. And so then we get to start seeing it as a friend instead of a foe, because it is you. Like even I often say I'm an emotional clearing coach, but we're not really clearing emotion. Emotion, you can think of them as like built up, bubbles or clogged arteries or a tumor, right? Like you can picture them as like an over congestion of one area of something. And so what we're actually doing when we're clearing it is it's you that's built up. It's parts of you and things you've taken on and like all this stuff. So what we're actually doing is we're breaking up the clog. Like we're like Drano or like baking soda and vinegar, and we're moving it and making it effervescent again and letting it be in its healthy expression. It's like breaking up that density and intensity. And then we make space in the area that was tight, and then it gets to go back to where it belongs. There is use for sadness. There is use for fear. There is use for anger. They all have use, but when they're stuck in one area and become really reactive, that's why I call them charges, right? Like they can burst at any time. We just need to dissolve them so that they can do their useful part wherever they are needed in the body.
So good.
That was a long explanation.
No, it's so good. It's like the mind has its job, right? The mind is there for a reason, but it's like the goal shouldn't be to manage the mind and like have the same situation keep popping to manage it. Like what I'm hearing you say is you get to the root, you clear it, and then there isn't the managing of the mind that has to be like done, right?
Yeah.
The mind can do what it's meant to do, which is not this.
Yeah, the mind can move us forward. It can be strategic and, plan and get excited about things. That's more fun for the mind anyway. It's like the mind has taken on a role where it's not needed. And so it's so busy doing that management and protection that it doesn't actually get to play and have fun in the way that actually is going to be, more productive and effective.
Yeah, you just said a word there that like really popped for me, which is protection. Like not feeling your feelings is a really beautiful protection strategy that your body, like that your mind took on, like probably at a very young age if you're not used to feeling your feelings, right? And so it's like what Dana, I think is so beautiful at doing is like letting your body know that it's safe to feel those feelings, that like you can handle it. And that protection strategy might not be necessary anymore. It really served you for a part of your life and it doesn't need to be here. Anyways, I'm hearing you say that.
Well, and that's the gentleness, that's the compassion, right? And we can feel, it just feels better when we're able to talk ourselves down in that way. And we learn through others, right? I mean, I know we've had many times where it's like, because, even someone who's done this so much, like that resistance shows up. And it's like to have someone kind of talking you down and saying, hey, this is here. It's just trying to protect you, but it doesn't need to anymore. And it gets to go do fun things. It's like we do really speak to the body and mind often like a child, because we need that simple, gentle, safe feeling words. Because then it feels, when we feel safe, we can let go. I'm not like, if there's a hurricane and I'm holding on to the ledge of, and there's a hurricane, I'm not going to let go. But if I realize that by letting go, I'm just going to float on my back into a pool and I have little floaties on, like, okay, that feels a lot safer. But when I'm facing away and I'm holding the ledge, my mind's thinking there's a hurricane behind me when really it's a calm pool. So you need reminders and someone else sometimes to just remind you, like, it's okay. And the body's so wise. Yeah. Like that's the thing, is it's body wisdom. And so the more we build that trust in our own bodies and our body wisdom, the easier these things get.
And where does inner voice come into play with that, body versus mind? Like, where does the inner voice live and what role does it play?
So inner voice is you, and it is everything beyond you. So it is connected into you and it is yours. And it is directly connected to source and all that is. And it's this beautiful portal of wisdom. So often people talk about it as your intuition or your soul or your higher self. I like inner voice because I feel like it's me, it's mine. And it carries all the wisdom and correctness for you in the moment. It's present moment. And it works with the mind. They are here to work together. They are here to work in coherence. They are here to co-create for you. And what's happened is our society has taught us to rely on the mind and doubt our intuition. And so, I mean, you just fucking look around. Everything is set up for that. And you talk to people and you're like, well, I have a feeling. Well, how do you know? Right? So there's a lot of like that energy. And it's created not just to doubt our intuition, but it's created fear around trusting it. And so that fear, it's collective, right? We see it. We freaking see it. You see it in shows. They trusted it and they were wrong, right? And they paid for it and they shouldn't have gone on instinct. There's a lot of that. And that fear creates emotional.
The programming. Yeah.
The programming, it's so deep. And that collective programming becomes collective fear and mistrust that shows up as emotional charges in our body. So a lot of times when people want to go in, they're like, I feel like I can't, or I can't hear it, or I can't find it. And it's not that it's not there. It's always there. It's always with you. It always has been. It's always guiding you. It's always speaking to you. It's a matter of getting through, right, the muck, right, cleaning the pool so you can see the bottom of the pool. And when you clear the emotions, when you get into the body, you're going to feel the still calmness. And that's where the inner voice speaks from. It's quiet, it's consistent, it's loving, it's present, it's gentle, it's all-knowing. It is supporting you and the greater good. And so imagine having a problem, a perceived problem in the mind, and trying to solve it from the mind only. The beauty of inner voice is once we clear the stuff, I interview your inner voice, just like I'm coaching a mind. I talk to, just like Lauren is interviewing me. I do that with people and their minds aren't answering. It's the wisdom within them that's answering. Their tone changes, their demeanor changes, and the answers freaking change. And all of a sudden you get a whole new perspective on the same thing. And then you can work in coherence with the mind to like move forward or not. on that insight. And it's just like, it's such a missing piece. And it's more than intuition. And I just think that I like to point that out, because it's like, this is like, it is, you think of your mind and how you can use your mind, and no, this is also there. So you use your mind, you use your inner voice, you ask it questions, you talk to it, you converse with it, you ask it what it thinks, you ask it for its perspective, you ask it for signs, right? So it's connected to your intuition, it's connected to universal guidance, it's connected to God, it's connected to signs and spirit animals. Like, all of that is outside of you, but your inner voice is you. So we're not outsourcing anymore, we're insourcing. Ooh, I like that.
Ooh, insourcing.
Insourcing.
When she gets on a roll, that 4426, you got that design of a transmitter. She's transmitting.
I'm hearing insourcing and resourcing. So insourcing is when you're using your inner voice, and resourcing is to use your mind.
So good. And I think you and I have talked about this quite a bit, like the difference between, I mean, the mind can be the spokesperson for all those undefined centers, all the shadows, all the ways that it thinks we're quote unquote not enough, because it's trying to protect us. So it's like you can use this inner voice that's equally available. And I've just like loved, Dana, watching you tap into your inner voice on sessions, and like when you share notes from your inner voice, they always rhyme, which I love. Like for you, not everyone's inner voice rhymes, but for you, right? When it just like comes through, and it's like, it'll be areas where maybe your mind is really struggling with a decision or something where you're moving through, and all the things that you think you have to do. And then the inner voice gets involved, and it's like, actually, like the inner voice has never ever said like, you need to work harder. Like that's just like not a thing from the inner voice. So it's just so fun to like watch the shift of like, oh, this is what's deeply true versus this is what I'm telling myself I need to have happen.
Yes. What is deeply true versus what I'm telling myself. And what I'm telling myself is so conditioned and programmed, right? From a young age, we are conditioned and programmed and led to believe things that aren't necessarily true and right for us. And so that's why the inner voice is so potent and powerful, because it's not tainted. And so, right, it's like
capital T.
Yeah. And so as we lean in more to the inner voice, what happens is the mind starts to trust and rely on that more than the external. So it's looking inward, right? Insourcing. It's looking inward for what's right in the moment for it versus what I'm looking outward versus what I should do, where I should be, what I should have accomplished, it's just a different perspective. And as the mind relies on that more, it actually becomes more coherent with the inner voice. And that's when like your whole harmony, your whole being starts to move in the direction towards what's best and right for you. And so much less resistance.
And what I've seen is like, then there's like the marble tracks, right? Like one of them is deeply ingrained, the grooves of the marble tracks in the mind of like, I got to do this. I got to do this. I'm looking for this. I've been programmed for this since like birth. And so it's like, we're just creating a new marble track of like, it might not be as deep yet. It might not be the default, but after time, like with working in it and working through it and like tapping into your inner voice, it becomes more and more you remember to go there. You create awareness. Oh, I get to tap into my inner voice. Oh, I get to tap into my inner voice. So I just am saying that because I know that a lot of times, like when we talk about things that are so powerful like this, like we can sometimes use them against ourselves that like, oh my gosh, I should be doing this all the time. Right. And it's like, this is just it's a practice.
Yeah. It's a pulsation, right? It's in and out, forward and back, up and down, bouncing all around, right? It's like, it gets to be, this of all things gets to be fun and light. And yeah, like that's what shifts everything. And I think that's where I got into this work in particular is I was like, God, it just feels like so heavy and hard and dense. And what if it got to be light and fun and just a little, I like to say, I see myself as the buoy, as your buoy, right? So it's like you get to deep dive with your snorkel and go into the depths and intensity, but like I'm always going to be your buoy, like bouncing around up top, like holding the light for you. And your inner voice then gets to do that for you as well. And it's a gentler way to operate and to live. And it creates more peace and harmony and more freedom. I mean, it does create more freedom because it's freedom from the confines of the mind, of expectation and shoulds and all of that. I had something else was coming through and I just lost it. So inner voice. Yeah, well, we're probably good then.
We'll see what comes through. Well, I was going to ask if your inner voice had anything to say or share with those of us that are listening, that are like getting into this work, considering like inner voice, body, emotions. Like, is there anything that your inner voice has to say or share?
Okay, it's already talking. So let me close my eyes. So let it be easy. Let it be fun. Let yourself play. Let yourself run. You are free and clear every day, my dear. Let yourself live. Let yourself breathe. Let yourself feel the deep relief of going inward and playing inside, of letting us flow wherever you reside, because we are within. We are never without. We are with you and you are with us. So be here now. Be here and breathe. Let yourself be full. Let yourself see. Everything that you need is already here. Everything that you need is crystal clear. Let it come through. Let it come out. Free yourself from all the doubt. For once you come in, for once you lay down, you will see what is all around, what is all within, what is all to be. Everything is created from you and me.
Thank you, inner voice.
Thank you. My inner voice is like, yay. I have to stop it because it will just go on and on and on. But
I mean, hey, we can just keep going. The affirmation track. I love it.
Yeah. I often, when you're in your inner voice, oh my gosh, you know what I just got a visual of, Lauren? Okay.
I love this.
So our gene keys, and we have the, what is the shadow, the gift, and the city?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, get this. The shadow is the mind, the gift is emotions, and the city is inner voice.
Ooh, that's fun. That's a fun, natural, easy breezy perspective on that.
I don't know if there's a gene, but it's like that if I were to embody this work, we move from the shadow of the mind. It's not that the mind is a shadow, but we move from the shadow of the mind through the wisdom of body and emotions to the city enlightenment of your inner voice.
Ooh, so good.
I'm kind of obsessed with that.
Yeah. Love that systematizing, like projector here to master a system. We have another modality. We have another framework. We love the frameworks.
I love frameworks. There's so many frameworks. I know when we were doing my work on the audio program, I'm like, well, there's this framework and this one and this one. And, but they all fall into kind of the same thing, which, yeah, that's beautiful.
Do you want to talk about like what you have offers wise for the humans, of where they're at and where they get started and all of the things?
Yeah. So this should be in the to get started podcast, and then signing up for the vitamin D newsletter, which all these links will be in the show notes. And then I have an audio course that is not out yet. It is on pre-sale, and it's alignful.com/audio. And that's going to be in the outro now to like join this audio course. It's called Emotions Decoded. And it's just going to give you like the deep basics is what I'm hearing. The deep basics of emotional work.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, this is at the time of recording. So I am really leaning into doing a 30-day of inner voice opportunity for everyone, where every day I give you a simple, like in a Telegram group, a simple prompt And we're building your connection to your inner voice over 30 days, because I find that it is most impactful when we really dive in and explore. And there's so much resistance to doing it from the mind. So I want to be there with you as we just explore inner voice for 30 days. So the link to that will be in the show notes. And then, of course, one-to-one work. I'm doing, that's on my website, but basically you can start with 6 weeks, and we do a little 6-week emotional exploration, and we deep dive into something, and then we can keep working together monthly, however that feels good. And then I'm putting this last because I'm not sure how this will go, but I do currently have one-to-one sessions, and I kind of go in and out of wanting to do those. So if they're available, they'll be in the show notes. And if they're not, you can reach out to me personally and see if I will do a session for you.
I love that. Yeah, those one-offs. It's like some seasons they're on, some seasons they're off. We'll see.
I'm leaning more, as I felt, in 2024, I really am leaning, my energy is more interested in group. So I'll do another round of the emotional edit. There might be a little nesting inner voice and emotion program happening in February. So I'm just really drawn toward group things where we get to kind of explore a topic in depth and then break apart. And then, so there might be more of those little ones as inspiration shows up in next year. So you can just kind of keep playing in group activities with me.
Anything else you want to say, share,
ask think so.
Before we...
Thank you so much. This is a double delight because you get to interview me. I get to just talk, which is my favorite thing ever. And also we just get to chat together, which is my other favorite thing ever. So you have no idea how much I appreciate and love that we got to do this together.
Oh my gosh, you had so many golden nuggets that came through. I'm so excited for people to listen to this.
Yay! I'm so excited too. Let's see. Hold on. I'm going to say, okay. Thank you as always for tuning in. Lauren, thank you for being my guide and my support along the way, and also being the guide during this podcast. It's so perfect. Find Lauren on Instagram at
Lauren E. Armstrong _.
Thank you. And that's where, you're going to get everything you need from Lauren on Instagram. Is there anywhere else they should find you?
No, my website is laurenarmstrong.com, but I'm most active on Instagram. I limit my availability of places that I respond. So that's it.
And then I'll link up our other podcasts that we did together too, so you can hear more from Lauren and more of her expertise too I loved that episode so much. So I'll link that one as well. And as always, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Thank you for joining me in another episode of the Tuning In podcast. If you loved this episode, please rate and review it or share it with a friend. If you want to go deeper into the realm of emotions and learn the language of your body, check out my audio course, Emotions Decoded, at alignful.com/audio. As always, you can follow along with my journey on Instagram at Dana_Evans. See you next week.